Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Good morning. My name is John Cullen, C-U-L-L-E-N.
And where are you currently employed?
I'm a police officer with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
A little over 24 years.
What's your current assignment?
I'm currently assigned to the Integrity Special Investigation Unit.
Could you just briefly explain what that is?
Basically, we handle criminal allegations against City of Jacksonville employees, including Sheriff's Office members, other city entities. In addition to that, we handle murder for hire, extortion, and a wide variety of other, what I would call high-profile crimes that don't fit within the mold of a unit we have that exists.
So during your time with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, could you briefly go through the various assignments that you have had?
Yes, sir. I started in patrol on the midnight shift in the Southside Arlington area. From there, after approximately 6 years, I went to the DUI Enforcement Unit, where I spent the next 8 years. From there, I transferred to investigations, spent a year in burglary. The next approximately 4 years, I was a member of the robbery unit. And from robbery, I transferred to homicide, where I spent the next approximately 4 years before approximately a year ago going to the integrity unit.
So I want to focus on your time period when you were with a detective in the homicide unit.
Yes, sir.
Were you with the homicide unit back in 2015?
Yes, sir.
In 2016?
Yes, sir.
And more specifically, January the 29th of 2016?
Yes, sir.
Were you assigned as one of the detectives related to the murder of Aiden McClendon?
Yes, sir, I was.
Were you the lead detective?
No, sir.
What was your role?
I was we respond as a team to a homicide, which is led by a sergeant and 4 detectives. The lead detective and his partner work together, and then myself and my partner work together to trying to divvy up or divide the workload because it can be extensive. And in this particular case, my involvement began by responding to UF Health.
So I want to focus your attention specifically related to a carjacking of a white Toyota Corolla that belonged to the person by the name of Shatoya Williams.
Yes, sir.
Did you, as part of your duties of the homicide team, take on that investigation as part of your duties?
Yes, sir, I did.
And I have a very simple question for you.
Yes, sir.
We need to clarify. The original call related to the carjacking of Shatoya Williams, that occurred at 1454 Winthrop Street?
Yes, sir.
What time did that call come in?
It was on the 28th of January 2016 at 15 minutes past midnight, so 00:15.
So 12:15 on January the 28th, 2016.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, that's all the questions that I have.
All right, Cross.
No cross.
Ms. Ryan. All right, may this witness be excused?
Yes, sir.
All right, Detective, thank you. You're
Yes, sir.
excused.
Thank you.
Call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state would call Officer Poole.
You solemnly swear affirm that the testimony you give you the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so be God.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Would you please introduce yourself to the juries?
Paul Christopher Poole, P-O-O-L-E, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office.
Officer Poole, where are you currently employed?
Jacksonville Sheriff's Office,
How long have you been employed with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
9 years.
And did you have any prior law enforcement experience prior to coming to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
Yes, 4 years while I was in active duty Navy.
Could you tell the jury what your current assignment is?
My current assignment is patrolling Zone 3, which is South Side.
So, Zone 3, we're talking about Southside. Just kind of give us a general area of what we're talking about.
Southside Boulevard, Phillips Highway, Emerson, Town Center, 95 to 295.
Now, back on February the 2nd, back in February of 2016, could you tell the jury where you were employed?
I work for the Community Problem Response Team, which is a citywide task force.
This community problem response team, explain what your duties were as part of that.
Our duties were to engage the community in certain areas, what we refer to as hot spots, to show police presence, to try to address any type of violent crimes, gang activity, drug activity.
So you could be assigned to various duties depending on what's going on.
Yes.
All right, I want to direct your attention back to February the 7th of 2016. Were you on duty on that day?
Yes,
Now, just for reference, was that Super Bowl Sunday?
yes.
At some point, were you contacted by Detective Howe, who's a gang detective that evening?
Yes.
Why did he contact you?
He contacted me,
Overall.
he would periodically contact me if he wanted me to make contact with a possible gang member or someone that may be hanging around gang members or associates. So he called me to say that he had received a phone call from a confidential informant that Montico Brown and PCE members were at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Now, the Buffalo Wild Wings, where are we talking about? Where's that located, John?
River City up by the airport.
And so, in response to him contacting you about that, were you familiar with the criminal gang Problem Child Entertainment?
Yes,
Now, were you looking that particular night for Montico Brown?
well, earlier that day I had an incident where he was in a carjacking vehicle that ran from me, and subsequently we couldn't find him after he fled the scene.
So you knew who it was, Montico Brown, but you weren't able to get your hands on him at that time, so you're looking for him later that evening.
Correct.
So you were advised that Montico Brown was at BW3, or Buffalo Wild Wings, I apologize.
Yes.
And did you respond to that location?
Yes, I did.
And again, this is at the River City Marketplace off Airport Center?
Yes.
What did you do when you arrived?
What I did, the squad and I, we formulated a plan to go up and try to, see if Montico's, or, find Montico. We got a couple of K-9 units en route, and we kind of set up around the restaurant to see, to survey anything, see if there's cars driving around or where maybe looking out for the police or anything like that. So that way when we got there, we could try to take them into custody.
And so you're basically setting up around Buffalo Wild Wings in order to see what you can see.
Yes.
So what did you specifically do?
I specifically directed our squad mates around to where to park at, and what I did is I was approaching the building. In my vehicle, I got a call from Detective Howard. I kept getting updates periodically by the phone. Once I got to the near the location, Officer Howell called me and says, "Hey, they're getting ready to leave the building." So I informed all the officers are responding, and I kind of parked a little bit closer to the front of the building. That way I could hopefully see them when they came out.
And so, just so we're clear, the vehicle that you were talking about involving Montico Brown from earlier in the day, that's not the same vehicle that we're talking about that was related to the murder of Aiden McClendon?
No, it was a Dodge Avenger taken in an armed carjacking over off of 103rd Street.
So you're advised that Montico Brown is going to be leaving Buffalo Wild Wings, you're set up, and were you able to see anyone come out of Buffalo Wild Wings?
Once Detective Howell said they're coming out, I could see about 10 or 15 individuals come out. As he said, they're walking out, and then once I was able to determine that the group that he was talking about, I informed all the other squad members that they're walking out.
So from the location where you were you able to see the individuals' faces at that time?
No.
Were you able to see general clothing descriptions?
Yes.
When the individuals came out of Buffalo Wild Wings, how many vehicles did they enter into?
Once they started getting in cars, there was 2 vehicles.
And the vehicles were parked where?
One was parked, there's a red SUV parked kind of closer to the door, and then there's a smaller 4-door sedan kind of parked 10 or 15 spots north of it, so I really didn't have a good visual on it for a make and model. I could see the car pulling out, and I alerted other members of my squad to say, hey, this is a car that they're also in.
So you see the 2 groups of individuals. One group is getting into what you described as the smaller car, and the other group is getting into a red SUV?
Yes.
Did you update the other officers that were with you as far as that there were actually 2 vehicles that were
Yes.
at play? Could you tell at that point You're looking for Montico Brown, which vehicle he specifically had gotten into?
Based on the description I was giving, I believe Montico had been getting, based on the description I was given, I had reason to believe that he was getting into the red SUV.
The red SUV, and was this a red Tahoe?
Yes.
Now, just tell us what the description was that you had.
Black male wearing all black clothing.
So as a result, what happened with the red SUV? Did it leave the parking lot?
Yes.
And what did you do?
I informed the members on my squad, the two vehicles were leaving, and designate what officer's going to stop which vehicle. And so I took the lead and said, hey, I'll be one of the ones that stops the red SUV along with two other officers. And then the remaining officers stopped the four-door sedan.
So did you follow the red Tahoe out of the parking lot?
Yes,
And the other team of officers follows the small car?
correct.
What did you see when you got behind the red Tahoe?
I was the second vehicle behind the truck, so the traffic stop was based on a busted rear left tail light that had a white light illuminating from it.
And that's a traffic violation?
Yes.
What happened when the red Tahoe was stopped?
We stopped the vehicle, conducted a felony takedown.
When you say a felony traffic stop or a felony takedown, what does that mean?
Felony stop is nothing more than a high-risk traffic stop where we don't place ourselves in danger by walking to the vehicle knowing what may be present. So what we did is called each individual out one by one.
And why was it conducted in that way?
Because based on the information that I have received from Detective Howell, Montico had a gun on him, and also that earlier in the day that Montico had fled from an armed carjacking vehicle. He also left the scene of a traffic crash, which is also a felony. So based on the knowledge that I had, I knew that I had reason to believe that there was a felon in that vehicle, and that's why we pulled him out that way for officer safety.
All right, so did the red Tahoe pull over?
Yes,
At that point, were you able to determine who was driving the vehicle?
yes,
And who was driving the vehicle?
Henry Hayes.
Do you see that individual here in the courtroom today?
Yes,
Could you please identify him?
a young black male wearing a blue shirt and a gray tie.
Your Honor, if the record could reflect that Officer Poole has identified Henry Hayes, the defendant in this case.
The record would so reflect.
Henry Hayes was driving. Who else was in that red Tahoe?
Cynthia Hayes, Kwame Richardson, and Rashawn Jackson.
Cynthia Hayes, do you know that that is Henry Hayes' sister?
Yes,
And who were the other two?
Rashawn Jackson and Kwame Richardson.
Do you recall where the individuals that you just described were sitting within the red Tahoe?
Based on Henry being the driver, I knew where he was at. Based on the description I was given of Montico of all black, I saw that individual get into the right rear passenger seat. I vaguely remember where Kwame was sitting and Cynthia was sitting, but I do know that Henry was the driver and Rashawn was the right rear passenger.
All right, so once you are starting to get these individuals out of the red Tahoe, did it turn out that it was in fact not Montico Brown that you thought was sitting on the rear passenger side?
Yes,
Who did that turn out to be?
Rashawn Jackson.
What did you do with the individuals as you got them out of the vehicle?
Once we called them out one by one, we had them sit on the sidewalk.
At that point, did you ask Henry Hayes for consent to search the red Tahoe?
Yes,
Did he give you consent?
yes,
At that point, did you search the vehicle?
yes, I did.
As part of that search, what, if anything, did you find?
Part of that search, I went through the vehicle, and then in the rear passenger or the rear cargo area of the truck, in a 5-gallon bucket, I found a Glock pistol.
A Glock pistol?
Yes, sir.
What, if anything, else did you find?
Well, it had a magazine in it, but that was already in it. But other than that, nothing that would indicate that I need to take possession of it or anything.
Your Honor, may I first witness?
Yes, sir, you may.
I'm going to be showing you what has been entered into evidence as Exhibit 299. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize this to be?
The Glock pistol I found in the truck.
And where was this located?
In a 5-gallon bucket in the cargo area of the pickup truck, or the SUV.
Your Honor, permission to publish to the jury?
You may.
Your Honor, of course, just noted for the record, the previous motion.
Yes, sir. Noted.
When you conducted your search of the vehicle and found this firearm, were you wearing gloves?
Yes, it was.
And why do you do that?
To preserve anything that I may have found that doesn't put my fingerprints or DNA on it.
And so when you took it out with the gloves, did you then at that point put it into a sterile bag?
Yes, it did.
And again, what's the purpose of that?
To protect it from any other outside contaminants for DNA or touch prints.
And at that point, did you take the firearm to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office property room?
It was taken, yes.
And did they package it in a box for admission into the property room?
Yes, it was.
Now, I want to kind of go back to the scene. Did you question the occupants of the vehicle about the gun?
Yes, it did.
Did Henry Hayes take responsibility for possessing or owning the firearm?
No, he didn't.
Cynthia Hayes?
No, she didn't.
Sustained.
No, she didn't.
Sustain the objection.
Kwame Richardson, did you question him if he possessed the firearm?
Yes, it did.
And what did he say?
Didn't know anything about it.
The individual who didn't know anything about that firearm, do you see him here in court today?
Yes, I do.
Could you please identify that individual?
He's wearing a dark-colored suit jacket, short haircut, black male.
Your Honor, if the record could reflect that the witness, Officer Poole, has identified Kwame Richardson, the defendant?
The record will so reflect.
And to be clear, you specifically asked Kwame Richardson if this was his gun.
Correct. Yes, I did.
What did he say?
He said he didn't know anything about a gun.
Was Cynthia Hayes placed under arrest at that time?
Yes, she was.
Related to an outstanding capias, but not related to that search?
Correct.
And so she was arrested. As also part of your investigation, did you collect the video from Buffalo Wild Wings?
Yes, I did.
And when I say video, I'm talking about surveillance video from the restaurant itself.
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I don't have any further questions for you. I apologize. I do want to show you some pictures. Jumping the gun. I'm showing you what's been admitted into evidence as States 253. You recognize this photograph?
Yes, I do.
And what is this?
The red SUV we stopped that night.
Now, in fairness, these photographs are taken at a later date and time, not at the time that you actually found the firearm in the red Tahoe.
Correct.
Showing you States 254, what are we seeing here?
The same vehicle.
This is showing a driver's side shot of the vehicle.
Yes.
States 255, what are we seeing here?
The driver's side of the vehicle.
States 256,
The passenger side of the vehicle.
States 257.
The busted left tail light.
And this is the busted taillight that you were talking about related to pulling over the vehicle in the first place.
Yes.
States 258. Tell us what we're seeing here.
The rear cargo area of the SUV.
And again, this photograph is taken later in time, so the bucket's not in this actual photograph.
No.
Could you show the jury where the bucket was located within the vehicle by circling?
Yes. Behind the rear passenger bench.
Was it right up next to the seat itself?
Couple inches.
Your Honor, if I could approach the witness.
You may.
Officer Poole, I'm showing you what has been marked for identification purposes as States 21P. Do you recognize this photograph?
Yes, it's the front passenger compartment of the SUV.
Your Honor, at this time, we move to introduce this into evidence and states
531 for Richardson and 534 for Hayes.
531 and 534.
Any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
Any objection, Ms. Wright? All right, then be so admitted as those respective members.
In this last photo, what are we seeing here?
The front passenger compartment of the vehicle.
Can I have one moment, Your Honor?
There.
Your Honor, no further questions.
Morning, Officer Poole.
Good morning.
You stated that this date was February the 7th, 2016. Is that correct?
Correct.
You were the second police car following the red Suburban. Is that right?
Yes.
Whenever the traffic stop was first engaged, the car or the truck pulled over immediately, did it not?
It did.
It didn't try to flee or elude, is that right?
Correct.
And you stated that my client gave you consent to search, right?
Correct.
That's voluntary consent, is that correct?
Correct.
And you stated my client said he did not know anything about the firearm, is that right?
That's correct.
Now, was there more than one police officer that searched this red truck?
I was the only one that searched it.
Pardon me?
I was the only one that searched it.
You were the only one that searched it?
Yes.
You do a thorough job when you search a vehicle, is that right?
That's correct.
In other words, you check every place in the vehicle, is that correct?
Correct.
And you found the firearm in the back, in a bucket, right?
Correct.
I don't have any other questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Wright?
Officer Poole, you indicated that you stopped the red vehicle because you believe Montico Brown was in that vehicle. Is that correct?
The vehicle stopped because of a busted tail light.
Okay. But you were following that vehicle because you believe Montico Brown was in that vehicle. Is that correct?
Based on the description I was given, yes.
Okay. But you knew you couldn't just stop him for that reason. That's why you said that it was stopped for a busted tail light. Is that correct?
The vehicle stopped because of a busted tail light. However, Montico Brown fled the scene of a hit-and-run crash, which is a felony. So therefore, it makes him a felon. So therefore, I could stop that vehicle with or without a busted tail light.
Okay.
If I believe that person's in the vehicle.
I'm sorry, sir?
If I believe that person's in the vehicle, yes.
But you believed him to be in the vehicle because he had on all black clothing and he's a black male.
Based on the description I was given.
Okay. And so when you saw that group of members of PCE coming out of Buffalo Wild Wings, was there more than one person who was dressed that way?
Yes.
Okay. So you just chose the one you thought was Montico Brown?
I had to.
Okay. Now, you indicated that you conducted what you call a felony traffic stop. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you indicated that did you have your gun drawn? Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And it was more than one officer conducting that felony traffic stop. Is that also true?
That's true.
Okay. And all of you had your guns drawn. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you made each of the individuals get out of the vehicle one by one. Is that correct?
Correct.
At gunpoint.
Correct.
And you made them get on the ground, sit on the ground?
It was a previous state that had them walk back. We searched them, had them sit on the sidewalk.
Okay. Now, after all of that, you're saying that Mr. Hayes agreed to allow you to search his vehicle?
Yes.
Now, you indicate that you don't quite remember the placement of the persons within the vehicle. Is that true?
As I stated, I do know where Henry was sitting, and I do know where Rashawn was sitting.
Okay. And Rashawn Jackson, he was sitting in the rear passenger side of the vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes.
And he was closest to the firearm. Is that also true?
True.
Now, the firearm that you recovered did not have an extended clip. Is that also true?
I don't know of any weapon having a clip.
I'm sorry?
Weapons don't have clips.
Weapons don't have clips?
No, ma'am, they're magazines.
I'm sorry, did it have an extended magazine? I'm sorry.
No, it didn't.
Why were you searching the vehicle?
See if there's any drugs or guns in the car.
Okay. So you were specifically searching for guns, is that correct? And drugs, but one of the things you were searching for was guns, right?
Correct.
Did you, and you indicated when Mr. Hernandez asked you that you looked everywhere in the vehicle? You looked everywhere in the vehicle where a gun could be located, is that correct?
Everywhere accessible.
Now, you ended, during your direct examination, you said that the photographs that we have were not taken on the day of the incident. Is that correct?
I believe that was stated, yes.
Okay. So you didn't take photographs of where and how the gun was found. Is that also true?
That's true. That's true.
And when you stopped the vehicle for the light, you never issued Mr. Hayes a traffic ticket. Is that correct?
There was a written warning issued.
I'm sorry?
A written warning was issued.
Okay. What'd you do with it?
It was given to Mr. Hayes.
And that warning was for faulty equipment, not a broken taillight. Is that correct?
It's the same thing.
Okay, but you didn't, there's a specific statute for a broken taillight, is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
And that was not included on your paperwork for the reason for the stop, is that correct?
I'd have to reflect on the reports that were written.
I don't have any further questions.
Redirect.
Yes, sir. Is a broken taillight and faulty equipment the same thing?
Yes, it is.
You were asked some questions related to how thoroughly you searched the vehicle. Looking at what was State's Exhibit 21T, did you pull back the carpet of the passenger side front carpet right there that we're looking at?
No, it didn't.
How come?
It's a beat-up truck, torn carpet, torn seats. It's common. It doesn't heighten my sense to say maybe there's something here, but if it was a brand-new vehicle with torn carpet, displaced carpet, then that would alert me to say that something's, isn't correct, and I would make sure I look there.
One last question. Are magazines interchangeable on firearms?
Yes.
So I can have a long magazine one day and then put a short magazine in the next?
Yes.
No further questions.
All right, may this witness be excused?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, officer. You're excused.
All right, thank you.
Say, call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state would call Cynthia Hayes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes.
Good morning, Ms. Hayes.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your name for the record?
Cynthia Hayes, Cynthia, last name Hayes.
Is it a fair statement that you testifying today is a bit uncomfortable?
Not really.
Not really? All right. Tell me your relationship to the defendant in this case, Henry Hayes before.
That's my little brother.
All right. I want to talk to you a little bit about your involvement related to the SUV. But before I get to that, let me talk to you a little bit. Do you currently have pending charges with the state of Florida?
Yes, I do.
And related to those charges, how much time are you facing?
60 years.
60 years?
Mm-hmm.
And until recently, you were incarcerated in the Duval County Jail?
Yes, I was.
And you were released from the Duval County Jail?
Yes, I was.
And you were released on your own recognizance?
Yes.
Meaning you did not have to post a bond?
No.
Now, you have not entered a plea in that case that we're talking about.
No.
While you were in jail, were you pregnant?
Yes.
Did you actually have your child while you were in custody?
Yes, I did.
And how old is your child now?
2 months.
How is your relationship with your child?
It's all right.
It's all right. Your child important to you?
Yes.
Good for a mother to be with her child?
Yes.
All right. But you have agreed as part of being released, and I'm not the prosecutor in that case that we're talking about, correct?
Yes.
And Ms. Kite's not the prosecutor in that case.
Yes.
So part of being released was to come to court and tell the truth related to some specific information.
Correct.
All right, I want to talk to you a little bit back about, take you back to February the 7th of 2016. You remember that?
Yes. But what was on that day?
I want to talk to you specifically about those events.
Okay.
And that was a Sunday?
Yes.
You remember it being Super Bowl Sunday?
Yes.
Now, your father, does he own a vehicle?
Yes, he do.
What type of vehicle is that?
A red Tahoe truck.
A red Tahoe truck?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been admitted into evidence as states 253. Is this the red Tahoe truck
Yes.
that we're discussing?
Yes.
All right, now, this was Super Bowl Sunday, and on that day, did you ask your father if you could use his red Tahoe truck?
Yes, I did.
And were you allowed to use the vehicle?
Yes.
And what was the purpose, and why did you want to use the vehicle?
To go to Buffalo Wild Wings to watch the game.
Was there anyone else who was going to be going to Buffalo Wild Wings with you to watch?
Yes.
And who was that?
Henry Hayes, Rashawn Jackson, Paris Jackson, and Kwame Richardson.
And Perry Jackson is who?
Paris Jackson is my daughter.
And Rashawn is who?
My child's father.
Approximately what time did you take your father's vehicle on February 7th, 2016?
I don't remember.
Was it sometime late afternoon? Does that sound
It
generally
was
correct?
a little bit before nighttime.
And so, tell me again who was with you?
Rashawn Jackson, Kwame Richardson, Henry Hayes, and Paris Jackson.
Who all was, did a group leave initially from your father's home? Meaning, were you all together that day and left together, or did you pick anyone up?
I can't remember.
You can't remember? So you don't remember if you had to pick up Kwame Richardson from some other location, or if he was with you when you all left?
I don't remember.
Fair enough. So, you took the Tahoe, and where did you go?
We went to Buffalo Wild Wings.
Do you remember approximately what time you got there?
No, I don't. Probably 7, 8.
When you got there, had the Super Bowl already started?
Yes.
All right. And when you got there, did you immediately get a table, or did you have to wait for a while?
We had to wait.
All right. You remember what time you left?
No.
Was it dark when you left?
Yes.
And when you left, who all left with you from Buffalo Wild Wings?
Henry Hayes, Kwame Richardson, Rashawn Jackson, and Paris Jackson.
Where was the red Tahoe parked?
in front on the right.
So it was in the parking lot outside of Buffalo Wild Wings?
Yes.
And when you left, where did everyone sit within the vehicle?
Henry Hayes was driving. I was in the passenger seat. Rashawn Jackson was behind me, and Kwame Richardson was on the left. And Paris was between Kwame and Rashawn.
All right, at some point when you left, were you stopped by law enforcement?
Yes.
And tell me what happened.
We was stopped, and no, the police got behind us and cut the lights on. Henry told me to put his gun in the floor.
I'm sorry?
Henry told me to put his gun in the floor. He asked Kwame, did he have a gun? Kwame hesitated and said, nah. And that was it.
So you stopped the vehicle and you said that Henry asked you to put his gun on the floor?
Yes.
Where did that firearm come from?
From off of him,
From off of him?
I believe so.
And when you say he asked you to put that on the floor, what are you talking about by that?
Put it in the floor bed.
So we're looking at what has been admitted as states, I believe 231 and 234. Is this the area that we're talking about?
Yes.
So how did you put it in the floor?
I lift the floor up and put it down, put the gun in there and put the floor back down.
So draw on this if you could. You can touch it with your finger. And so you actually pulled that carpet back and placed Henry's firearm underneath the carpet?
Yes, I did.
Was it visible once you put it under there?
No,
I mean, was there like a bump or anything like that that was shown?
I don't believe so.
You said that this is the red SUV that we're talking about?
Yes,
This is your father's.
yes,
Were you the one who was supposed to be driving, or was Henry?
I was.
And why is that? Because he trusted the vehicle to you?
Yes,
This is showing 254, the passenger side of the red, or the driver's side of the red Tahoe?
yes,
255 showing the driver's front seat. And who was sitting there again?
Henry Hayes.
And so we're seeing what has been entered as states 258. And if you could show me where Rashawn Jackson was sitting. Right in front of that.
Yes,
And your child was where? And Kwame Richardson was where? And you're showing me Kwame Richardson was on the left rear driver's side.
yes,
Now, in addition to Henry giving you his firearm, were you aware of anyone else having a firearm in the vehicle?
no,
Did the police remove everyone from the vehicle?
yes,
Did they then conduct a search of the vehicle?
yes,
Can you tell me what was found?
a firearm.
Now, the firearm, was this the firearm that Henry had handed to you that you put under the floorboard?
No,
Where did this firearm come from?
he said it came out the back trunk.
Did he tell you it was located in a bucket?
I can't remember, but I believe so.
Did you recall him asking you if that was your firearm?
Yes,
And what did you say?
no,
Did he ask everyone in the vehicle if it was their firearm?
I was in the car by myself.
You were in the car by yourself? At some point, while you were outside the vehicle, did you have any conversation with Kwame Richardson?
Yes,
You know, at this point, I'd ask to excuse the Hayes jury.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of Mr. Hayes' jury, I'll ask you to kindly follow Ms. Golding out. Record will reflect the Hayes jury has left the courtroom. Mr. Hutton, you may continue.
Ms. Hayes, question I asked is, while you're outside the vehicle, did you have at some point a conversation with Kwame Richardson?
Yes.
Can you tell me what that conversation was?
He shook his head no and told me not to say nothing.
About what?
At that time, I didn't know what he was talking about, but when the officer came to the left with the firearm, that's when I knew what he was talking about.
All right. And do you see Kwame Richardson in the courtroom here today?
Yes.
Could you please identify him?
I can't see what he got on.
Your Honor, may the witness stand?
She may.
I think he got on navy blue.
Navy blue suit? Mm-hmm. Sitting next to the attorney in the red?
Yes.
Your Honor, if the record could reflect that Ms. Hayes has identified Kwame Richardson, the defendant.
The record would so reflect.
Now, I want to jump ahead in time. After this night, your brother, Henry Hayes IV, was arrested related to the homicide of Aiden McClendon.
Yes.
And when that occurred, what did you do related to Kwame Richardson?
I went to Kwame Richardson and I told him what was going on.
Now, when you say you told him what was going on, what did you tell him?
I told him that Henry Hayes was charged with the gun, the killing of the baby, all those charges. And he threw his phone down and he was like, I'm just going to turn myself in.
Did he say anything else?
I don't quite remember.
Did you have any further conversation with him?
Yeah.
And what was that?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
Mm.
When he threw his gun down, was he visibly upset?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I said
His
gun.
phone.
Let me correct the record. I meant phone. He was visibly upset?
Yes.
Have you talked to Kwame Richardson about the death of Aiden McClendon on any time moving forward?
No.
Your Honor, I believe we could bring the jury back in. Let me see y'all at sidebar real quick with the court reporter. Y'all can take your seats.
Your Honor, at this time, we would intend to, already been introduced as Exhibit 402, the surveillance video from Buffalo Wild Wings.
You may publish it.
I'm sorry, 402. Thank you, sir. Ms. Hayes, do you recognize what we're looking at?
Yes.
And what are we seeing here?
The door, the entrance to Buffalo Wild Wings.
And this is the Buffalo Wild Wings that you were talking about, that you and Rashawn and Henry Hayes and Kwame Richardson and your child went to?
Yes.
Could you see yourself in this video here?
Yes.
Could you show us? I'm sorry, that's not a very good clip. There's an individual standing in the back with a child. So I'm showing you right here. Who is that?
Henry Hayes.
And are you in this also?
I can't see myself,
I
but
can't see you either. This individual here, who is that?
me.
And do you recognize that this video is reflecting that it was 7:02 p.m.?
Yes,
And that sound accurate to you?
yes.
So at this point, the individual I'm circling here, is that you coming in?
Yes.
The person holding the child, who was that?
Danny Hatton.
Danny Haddon?
Yes.
Person following behind him, who was that?
Rashawn Jackson.
And these two individuals here, the one on the right is who?
Henry Hayes.
And the one on the left with the hoodie?
I can't see that.
This individual here?
Kwame Richardson. No, that's not Kwame.
Can you tell me who this individual is?
Not really.
Tell me when you see Kwame Richardson, if you do.
Yeah, he right there.
Backed it up. Tell me when to stop. You see him here?
No.
What about right here?
Yes.
That's Kwame Richardson?
Yes.
The last individual standing back here that we haven't discussed, do you know who that is?
I can't see that.
All right, if you'll keep your eyes on him. With the white stripe across the jacket. You see your brother standing in there?
Yes.
Is he standing directly in front of the person with the white stripe on their jacket?
Yes.
And who is that last person?
I can't tell if that's Montico Brown or Charles Howell.
Can you tell now?
No.
What about
Yes.
now? And who is that?
Montico Brown.
This individual that I'm circling?
Yes.
And who else was up there with you? Anyone else?
It was Montico Brown, Charles Howell, Danny Hatton, Kwame Richardson, Henry Hayes, Rashawn Jackson, and Paris Jackson.
I'll show you one more clip. And you'll see now that it is 10:01 p.m.
Correct.
If you could advise me when you see your group of people. Person who just walked on the screen,
Charles Howell,
and the person next to him to his left,
Cynthia Hayes,
standing directly behind you.
I don't know who that is. Rashawn Jackson,
All right. With your child,
Henry Hayes, Paris Jackson, Danny Hatton.
in the camo.
Yes.
This individual here,
Charles Howell,
this individual with the white stripe on the jacket,
Montico Brown,
you know who this is?
Rashawn Jackson,
This individual and this individual?
Kwame Richardson,
And this individual?
Charles Howell,
And that is you all leaving Buffalo Wild Wings. At that point, did you go out to your car that resulted in the traffic stops with the police that you talked to us about?
yes.
All right, I want to show you one other video. want to show you a video that has been entered into evidence as States 411. Before I start, do you recognize where this is?
Yes,
And where is that?
my house,
Your house. Whose room is it?
my daughter's room.
Telling y'all niggas down for they going.
Whose voice is that?
Hearing,
Henry
Hayes.
the fourth, your brother?
yes,
Knock something down, if they gon' shoot, then shoot something. Better hear about the shit on the news something. Better hear about the shit on the news something. Nigga no one. Niggas get grabbed by nigga one. Hoes get X-style Louis on guns. Police will talk, but we won't say nothing.
Did your brother stay in that room sometimes?
yes,
Did you know he had those firearms in there?
no.
Your Honor, I don't have any further questions.
All right, cross.
Morning, Ms. Hayes.
Good morning.
In 2016, you were how old?
19,
And your brother was 16, is that correct?
yes,
And like all typical 16-year-olds, he always wants to drive, is that correct?
yes,
And you let him drive that night, is that right?
yes,
I mean, he'd jump at the chance to drive anytime, is that correct?
yes,
Now, ma'am, you said you're pending a couple charges that carry up to 60 years, is that right?
yes,
And you were incarcerated because of those charges, is that right?
yes.
When were you incarcerated?
From November 10th up until June 11th,
Okay, November 10th of 2017
17,
to when?
June 11th, I
June
believe.
11th?
Yes,
Okay. That night, on February the 7th, 2016, you told Officer Poole you didn't know anything about the firearm that was found, is that correct?
yes,
Of course, you didn't volunteer that you put anything underneath the carpet, is that right?
no,
Certainly, you didn't put a rifle underneath the carpet, is that right?
no,
Now, on March 1st, 2016, do you remember giving a sworn statement to the state attorneys?
yes,
And in that sworn statement, you stated that you didn't know anything about a firearm being in that truck on February the 7th, 2016, didn't you?
yes,
But your testimony is different today than what it was in that sworn statement on March the 1st, 2016, is that correct?
yes,
You gave another sworn statement to the state attorneys on June the 11th, 2018, is that correct?
yes,
And after you gave that sworn statement, you were released from jail, is that right?
yes,
Are you hoping that the testimony that you're giving today in this trial will help you out in your pending charges?
yes.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
All right, Ms. Wright.
Can I ask that the case jury be excused?
Sure. Folks on the Hayes jury, if we'll kindly follow Ms. Golding out. All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Hayes, Henry Hayes is your little brother, right?
Yes,
And well, you would agree that you have an especially close relationship with him, is that correct?
Somewhat, yes.
Okay, well, he was living with you sometimes, is that also true?
I can't hear you.
He lived with you sometimes, is that true?
Yes,
And you gave him money, is that also true?
yes,
And you kind of looked out for him, is that also true?
yes,
Now, in this case, you went to Mr. Richardson and you asked him to take responsibility for that gun, is that correct?
no,
So you didn't go to him and tell Mr. Richardson that if he took responsibility, he wouldn't be charged with the murder?
no,
Now, in this case, you have, like you said, you've been accused of 2 charges, is that correct?
yes,
And one of them is a RICO, is that also true?
yes,
And the other one is a conspiracy.
Yes, sir.
We had previously addressed this issue in court.
We did. The name of the charge, that's it though.
Yes, Your Honor.
That was my understanding of what I said. So
That's-
proceed, Ms. Wright.
Thank you, Your Honor. You're also accused of conspiring to commit a RICO act, is that also correct?
yes,
And for each of those, you're looking at 30 years, is that also true?
yes,
And for the past 8 months, up until June 11th, you were incarcerated on those charges, is that correct?
yes,
And you had your baby in jail, is that also true?
yes,
And you would agree that you would do anything not to go back to jail, is that correct?
yes,
Now, you said that the charges that you have were not being handled by those prosecutors, is that correct?
yes,
But you've been talking to those prosecutors, is that correct?
yes,
And it was after you spoke with those prosecutors that you were released from jail, is that correct?
yes,
And you didn't have to pay anything to get out, is that also true?
no ma'am.
What was your bond prior to that?
400,000,
$400,000. Now, within that vehicle, you would agree that everyone was closer to you than Kwame Richardson,
Kwame Richardson was close with me too,
okay? But you had your brother, is that correct?
correct,
You would agree your brother's closer to you than Kwame Richardson.
yes,
And the other person was your boyfriend, is that correct?
yes,
Father of your 3 kids, is that also true?
yes,
And you would agree you're closer to him than Kwame Richardson.
yes,
And then there was your baby, who obviously you're closer to than Kwame Richardson.
correct,
Is that correct?
yes,
So Mr. Richardson was the person who was least close to you as far as relationships. Is that also true?
not really,
Okay. And you would agree that you love yourself more than you love Kwame Richardson. Is that also true?
yes,
Now, you indicated that while you guys were in the vehicle, Mr. Richardson indicated that he did not have a firearm. Is
yes,
that correct? Okay. Now, you guys are stopped by the police, is that correct?
yes,
And the police officer makes each of you get out one by one, is that correct?
correct.
You were the last person out of the vehicle?
No, I believe I was the first or the second.
Who was the last person out?
I can't remember.
Okay, so when you're taken out of the vehicle, where does the police officer take you to?
He put me in the police car behind the truck on the
Okay.
right passenger side.
So you're inside the police car. Am I to assume the police car is closed
Yes.
and the window is up?
No, it was cracked. It was down halfway.
I'm sorry?
The window was down halfway.
And you indicate that Mr. Richardson was outside on the sidewalk. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, he didn't make any statements to you about the gun, is that correct?
Yes, basically yes. He didn't say in Pacific it was a gun, but he said, no, don't say nothing.
And that was a statement he made to you, is that correct?
Yes.
But when they questioned you in that sworn statement, you never mentioned that statement, would that be true?
Yes.
The first time?
Yes.
And then you indicated that you spoke to him at some point later, is that correct?
Correct.
And you said that your brother was accused of the murder, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, would it be fair to say that Mr. Richardson already knew that?
No.
Okay, so he didn't know that your brother was accused of the murder?
No.
And that's when you had a conversation and he said, I'm going to turn myself in. Is that
Yes.
correct? And do you know what he was talking about?
I didn't ask in detail what he was talking about.
Okay, so you didn't ask him, hey, did you commit this murder that my brother is accused of?
No, I did not. I went to him and said my brother was charged with a firearm, a murder, attempted murder, and all the charges that he was charged with. And he threw his phone down. He said, I'm going to turn myself in.
Now, Ms. Hayes, you are aware of the evidence against your brother in this case, is that correct?
Correct.
And your dad's been keeping you up with everything that's been going on, is that also true?
Not really.
Ms. Hayes, have you ever been convicted of a crime of dishonesty?
No.
You've never been convicted of a theft charge?
Oh, yes.
How many times?
2.
I don't have any further questions.
All right, Mr. Hunt, do you have any redirect as to Ms. Wright's questions?
Yes, sir.
All right, please.
You asked the question whether you agreed you would do anything not to go back to jail, and you said yes.
Correct.
But that did not include coming in here and saying something that's not true.
No.
You're telling us the truth today.
Yes.
You were asked a question related to You asked a question related to your bond, that it was $400,000 and that it was reduced so you could be released on your own recognizance.
Yes.
Did you have any money at all to post any type of bond?
No.
None at all?
No.
You were also questioned about whether or not Kwame Richardson was close to you. Was he close to you?
Yes, I consider him a brother because of how close he was to hearing. Yes.
Seeing that you consider him as a brother, does it make it difficult to talk about what he told you today?
It does, but it's not like I have it's not a bad vibe or a bad blood between him, but it's hard.
With regard to, I want to talk a little bit about the firearms. The first firearm, well, let me back up on that. You said it was hard. Is that why when you originally were asked about this, you didn't make, when you gave a statement, that you didn't make any reference to the fact of what Kwame Richardson had said to you about don't say anything?
Yes.
Because he's like a brother to you.
Yes.
You're trying to protect him?
Yes.
But you're telling us what happened now.
Yes.
You said that Henry passed you the firearm, that you put it under the carport. Did Henry pass you any other firearms?
No,
Did he pass any firearms to the back seat?
no.
What about Rayshawn Jackson? How do you know he didn't have a gun?
He didn't have a firearm at all.
Didn't have a firearm at all?
Yes,
And so that leaves Kwame Richardson.
yes.
You know, I had one other question, but it would be relevant to both juries.
All right, then let's bring in Mr. Hayes' jury, please.
Ms. Hayes, you were asked by Mr. Hernandez whether or not Henry passed you a long gun.
Yes,
Are you aware of a Mac 90 that was recovered, a long gun, from 1846 Helena Street?
no,
Do you know where 1846 Helena Street is?
not really.
Are you familiar with the terminology area called the Bottom?
Yes,
All right, if I can approach the witness.
You may.
Ms. Hayes, I'm showing you what has been marked as dates 298. You recognize this firearm?
no,
Haven't seen it.
no.
And I do not have any further questions.
All right, may this witness be excused?
Yes, you may, Your Honor.
Ms. Hayes, you're excused. Thank you. All right, State, call your next witness.
Now the state would call Henry Hayes III.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, I'm Henry Lee Hayes III.
Mr. Hayes, are you the father to Henry Hayes IV, the defendant in this case?
Yes, sir.
Is it a fair statement that you really don't want to be here today testifying?
No.
But we issued you a subpoena to come in and tell the truth?
Yes.
And that's what you're going to do today?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes, what type of vehicle do you own?
I had a 95 Chevy Tahoe.
And did you own that vehicle back on February the 7th of 2016?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes, I'm showing you what is states 253. Do you recognize this vehicle?
Yes, that's my truck.
That's your truck? The 1995 red Tahoe?
Yes.
Do you recall that, taking you back to February the 7th of 2016, that was a Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday?
Yes.
On that day, did your daughter Cynthia Hayes ask to use and drive your red Tahoe?
Yes.
Did you allow her to use your vehicle?
Yes, I did.
And what was your understanding as far as who was going to be driving?
My daughter.
Did you know where your daughter was going to be going that evening?
Buffalo Wild Wings for a Super Bowl party.
Was there anyone else who was going with your daughter to Buffalo Wild Wings?
My son and my granddaughter and Rayshawn Jackson.
And when we say your son, of course...
Henry Hayes.
Yes, sir. And Rayshawn is the father of Cynthia Hayes' child?
Yes.
Do you also know a person by the name of Kwame Richardson, or JB?
I didn't know him at the time, no.
You didn't know him at the time? Was he with them when he left?
I didn't see him when my daughter dropped me off home, and she went to her house and got ready, and then she left. But I didn't see him when they, I didn't see him when they left.
All right. Did you know that Kwame Richardson was a close friend of your son's?
Yes, after that night I know.
So you knew they hung out together?
Somewhat. I mean, they said they was friends, so.
So once they left in the red Tahoe, kind of earlier in that day, I want to talk about who was in possession of that vehicle. Was it you?
Yes.
Anybody else besides you?
No one, me, just me.
Then allowed any other person to drive your red Tahoe earlier that day?
No.
So you had possession of it right up until your daughter and your son and Rayshawn Jackson and your granddaughter left?
Yes.
But you allowed them to use the vehicle?
Yes.
When they left, who was driving?
When my daughter dropped me off home, and she left driving.
So you drove over to, they left from her house and she dropped you off at home?
No, she dropped me off home and left from my house and went to her house.
I see. Later that evening, did you receive a call from your sister that the red Tahoe had been stopped by the police?
Yes.
Did you actually respond out to where the police had stopped the Tahoe?
Yes.
Do you know who was driving the vehicle when it was stopped?
My son, Henry Hayes.
Did you learn that a firearm was found inside of your vehicle?
That's what the officer said, but he didn't show me a firearm. He just said one was in there.
Did he tell you that he found it in the bucket in the very back of the Tahoe?
No, he just said he found a firearm in the back of my truck.
All right. Let me show you 254. This is also your vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes.
Stage 255, we're seeing the driver's side of front passenger seat. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Stage 256, we're seeing the passenger side of the vehicle. Stage 257, the cracked tail light. I want to ask you about the bucket. Did you have a bucket?
Yes, I had a black bucket back there.
Where did that bucket come from?
It came from a little convenience store. I ran out of gas and I was trying to find a bucket. I'm gonna say a regular gas can, but they didn't have one, so I got a black bucket.
All right. So you can actually touch this screen and draw on it. Could you show us where the bucket was located?
It was located in here.
I don't see it. Try it again. Touch the screen. Put a little. That's where you remember the bucket being?
Yes.
Had you ever had a firearm in your vehicle before?
No.
Should there have been a firearm in that vehicle?
No.
Do you have any idea where that firearm came from?
No.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Mr. Hayes, I'm showing you what is State's Exhibit 299 that's been entered into evidence. Do you recognize this firearm?
No.
Ever seen it before?
The first time seeing it.
Was this firearm, to your knowledge, in the back of your vehicle?
Well, that's what the officer said. If that's the gun he's saying that was back there.
How about prior to you releasing the car to your daughter?
No.
Did you ask your son where that firearm came from?
Yes, I did. He said he didn't know. He said it shouldn't be no gun back there.
Your Honor, at this point, I think it would be appropriate to excuse the Richardson jury. Mr. Hayes, I want to talk about the day that your son was arrested for the homicide related to the death of Aiden McClendon. You knew that he had been arrested on that day?
Yes, sir. He called me down there. Well, he was at the detention center.
And so you actually went down and spoke to the detectives,
Yes,
and they explained to you what was going on,
yes.
and you actually spoke with the detective Scott.
It was two of them.
Two of them. All right. After you left, after meeting with the police, did you go to find Kwame Richardson?
No, I went to my daughter and told my daughter what was going on.
So did you go with your daughter?
Yes.
Why did you want to go find him?
I mean, she said she had to go talk to him, so I rode with her.
And then when you met, did you find Kwame Richardson?
Yes, she found him.
And did you tell him that your son, Henry Hayes IV, had been arrested for the murder of Ada McClendon?
Yes. Well, my daughter talked to him. She told him that they're trying to put a murder on Henry.
And what did Kwame Richardson do in response?
Nothing. I mean, she was telling him about the gun that they found in the truck, and he just threw his phone down. And then he was like, they went to talk, and he was like, well, I got to let them know that was my gun. And then they walked off and went to talking.
He told you that he had to let who know?
I guess come down here, go down there and let the people know that was his gun in the truck.
Did he say anything about needing to turn himself in?
I didn't too much hear more because I went to calling Henry's mother and letting her know what was going on.
Can you identify the person who said that the gun was theirs in the courtroom here today?
He's sitting right there.
Could you describe the article of clothing that he's wearing?
I can't see him.
Your Honor, may the witness stand?
You may stand, Mr. Hayes, if that'll help you.
He got to stand. I can't see him. I can't see what he has on.
Can you see who he's sitting next to?
Well, he had on the blue jacket, I believe.
Blue jacket. If the record could reflect that Mr. Hayes III has identified the defendant, Kwame Richardson.
The record will so reflect.
Your Honor, I do not have any further questions for this witness.
Ms. Wright?
Mr. Hayes, you would agree you love your son, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've been with your son at each and every step of the way. Is that also true?
Yes, ma'am.
You were there when they first arrested him and questioned him. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've been at every single court appearance?
Yes, ma'am.
Every hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
Everything that's going on in your son's case? Is that
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
Now, the first time that we have become aware that you said that Mr. Richardson told you that that gun was his was last week on Thursday. Is that correct?
Last week?
On Thursday, yes, sir.
No.
When did you tell the police about that?
Well, we didn't tell the police about it.
Okay, so the first,
That was him and my daughter was having conversations, so I don't know what they was,
okay, that's what I'm saying. When did the state attorney's office know about this statement?
Yeah, you're right. It was last week when they subpoenaed me to come up there.
I don't have any further questions.
Mr. Hutt, any redirect as to those questions?
Mr. Hayes, is it accurate that when you met with Ms. Kite and myself about approximately a week, 2 weeks ago,
Yes.
and we were just generally asking you questions related to the red Tahoe,
Yes.
and we didn't specifically ask you anything about Kwame Richardson, did we?
And no.
You were the one who told us,
Yes.
so we didn't know about it till you told us,
Y'all should have known about it.
and it's the truth.
Yes.
I don't have any further questions.
All right, maybe we'll bring in Mr. Hayes' jury.
Hayes be allowed to sit in and view this trial since he's already testified?
He has been excused.
By the state, yeah.
Ms. Wright, he's excused. He may remain. State, call your next witness.
Your Honor, state calls Detective Jennifer and Poole. solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Would you please introduce yourself to the juries and spell your last name for the record?
I'm Detective Amponin. My last name is spelled Amponin.
Where are you currently employed?
With the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office.
And what's your position there?
I'm a crime scene detective
How long have you been a crime scene detective?
for 6.5 years.
And tell us generally what your duties are as a crime scene detective.
My duties as a crime scene detective are to photograph, document, collect, preserve, and also process evidence.
I want to bring your attention to the case we're here for today, the state of Florida versus Henry Hayes and Kwame Richardson. Were you asked to process a specific item of evidence in this case?
Yes, I was.
What was that item?
It was a Glock 26 handgun.
Can you tell the jury how you process this Glock 26?
I processed the Glock 26 for touch DNA evidence.
What is touch DNA?
Touch DNA is DNA evidence that we cannot see. It's not visible to the naked eye. It doesn't have any staining like blood does. And it comes from when a person touches an item with their skin.
And can you explain the process by which you check this weapon for touch DNA?
In order to process the gun for touch DNA, I would put on gloves, fresh gloves. I open a sterile envelope which contains a swab, which is basically a Q-tip. I place 2 drops of distilled water onto the Q-tip. I rub it over the area where I try to obtain touch DNA from. It's placed back into the sterile envelope, into a larger manila envelope, which is labeled. It is sealed. I sign it, initial it, and put it into the property room.
How many swabs do you use on an item that you're processing for DNA?
For touch DNA 1.
Why is that?
Because touch DNA may be such a small amount on an item, we want to concentrate as much as we can onto the one swab to obtain the best analysis possible. And in this case, I processed the areas of the firearm where the user would have had touched it or handled the firearm. These are the areas that I processed.
So what areas are those that you just mentioned?
It would be the textured areas of the firearm.
And why are the textured areas more likely to have touch DNA?
They would retain the skin cells better. They're rigid, they have grooves. So in this case, they would retain the skin cells better.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness.
You may.
You're actually going to want to step down.
She may.
Do you recognize this? What is this? This is the firearm that I processed. I'm actually going to have you remove that. I'm sorry, for the record, I'm showing the witness State's Exhibit 299. Now we're going to do this in 2 sections so the jury can see and stand up. But can you first show the second part of the jury where you process the DNA?
So on this firearm, I would process the front sight, the rear sight. I also would have processed the slide lock. On this side, I would have processed the slide lock lever. I also would have processed the trigger guard, the trigger, and also the handle of the firearm. Each of the areas, I don't know if you can see it, but they have ridges and grooves and areas where the touch DNA is where I would obtain it from.
So once again, you show the jury the areas that you would process.
So I would process the slide lock lever, the slide lock, the trigger guard, the magazine release, and then the handle or the grip of the firearm because it has the ridges and grooves where I would be able to use the
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Cross.
I have no cross.
That's right. All right, may this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Detective. You're excused. State, call your next witness. You may. Do we need the court reporter? All right, let's go.